More than 3 million Australian drivers could lose their license in 2026, and most of them won't even see it coming. New driving rules are being quietly planned behind the scenes, and they're not just targeting reckless drivers or dangerous criminals. In fact, even a harmless mistake like forgetting an eye exam or not updating your digital license app could land you with a suspension. Sounds unbelievable, right? But it's very real, and it's coming fast. This isn't just about road safety anymore. Australia is moving towards a stricter, tech-driven system that uses AI monitoring, health checks, and automated penalties to decide who stays on the road. And here's the scary part. Most people aren't ready for it. From senior drivers to young commuters, no one is safe from these changes. So before you unknowingly break a rule that didn't exist last year, watch this video till the end. Your license might depend on it. Number 1. The 2026 rule shake-up. Starting in 2026, Australia is preparing to roll out one of the most significant overhauls to its licensing system in decades. These proposed changes are part of a nationwide push to modernize road safety, reduce accidents, and improve public accountability. But while the intentions may be good, the real impact could catch millions of everyday drivers off guard. Authorities are looking to implement stricter relicensing laws, digital monitoring systems, and mandatory health checks. And these rules won't just affect professional drivers or those with a bad record. Even law-abiding citizens who've held a license for decades may suddenly find themselves ineligible to drive. One of the major talking points is the introduction of AI-assisted driving evaluations and real-time data monitoring. If passed, new systems may track your driving habits through your vehicle or even your smartphone. Harsh braking, distracted driving, or exceeding speed limits, even by small margins, could automatically trigger demerit points or reevaluation notices. For older Australians, the bar could be even higher. There's talk of mandatory yearly medical and vision checks for drivers over 70, with little room for appeal. Imagine getting a clean bill of health from your GP, only to be deemed unfit to drive because an algorithm flagged you as a risk. While these changes are being framed as part of a broader effort to modernize Australia's roads, they also open the door to unintended consequences. Digital license systems may malfunction. Data may be misinterpreted. People may lose their right to drive without even being aware they've broken a new rule. And worst of all, many of these reforms are flying under the radar, quietly introduced through policy updates and state-level reforms. If you're not paying attention, you could wake up one morning in 2026 and find your license already suspended. Number 2, health checks could be mandatory. From 2026, one of the most controversial proposals gaining momentum is the push for mandatory health assessments for certain categories of drivers, particularly seniors and those renewing long-term licenses. While this might sound like a reasonable step for public safety, the details are where things get alarming. Under the proposed rules, drivers over a certain age, likely 70 or 75, would need to undergo annual medical exams, including tests for vision, cognitive ability, and chronic conditions like diabetes or heart disease. And it won't stop there. Even drivers under that age bracket could be pulled into the system if flagged for health concerns or medications that may impair driving. Imagine this. You've been driving safely for decades, never had an accident, but now your sleep apnea diagnosis or slightly declining eyesight suddenly makes you ineligible. These decisions may not be based entirely on a doctor's recommendation, either. Centralized systems could begin to flag potential risks automatically based on medical databases or digital health records. If a single piece of your data doesn't match the new fit-to-drive criteria, your license might be suspended before you even receive a warning. The shift toward data-driven decision-making leaves less room for human judgment and more room for errors or overreach. For many Australians, especially those in rural areas or living alone, losing a license could mean losing independence. Public transport isn't always a reliable alternative, and family members might not be available to help. While the intent is to keep roads safer, the real-world consequences could be devastating for those who depend on driving for work, appointments, or even basic errands. If you or a loved one is approaching the affected age group, Now is the time to start preparing, because by 2026, it might already be too late. Number 3, AI monitoring while you drive. One of the biggest game changers coming in 2026 is the rise of AI-powered driver monitoring systems. These technologies are already being tested in commercial fleets and high-end vehicles, but soon they could become a standard requirement for everyday drivers. The idea is to use sensors, cameras, and smart algorithms to track your driving habits in real time. This includes everything from how often you brake hard, how fast you accelerate, if you drift out of your lane, or even how often you glance at your phone. It might sound futuristic, but this isn't a distant possibility. It's already being rolled out in pilot programs across parts of Australia. The danger lies in how this data will be used. If your vehicle, or even your insurer, collects enough risky behavior data, you could be flagged automatically for license review or suspension. You might never get pulled over, never receive a ticket, and still find yourself penalized because a system judged you as unsafe. Worse, many of these decisions could happen without human oversight, relying on machine learning to determine whether your driving is normal or not. In some cases, just one bad day behind the wheel could be enough to tip the scales, especially if the data is shared across agencies. What makes this especially concerning is that most drivers won't know they're being tracked or how their data is being interpreted. While companies and government agencies claim it's all in the name of safety, the truth is that there's very little public awareness or transparency around how these systems work. And by 2026, once the laws change, it might be too late to challenge the decision if your license is revoked. The best move now? Understand your car's technology, opt out where possible, and start driving like you're always being watched, because you probably are. Number 4. Demerit points could be nationalized. Right now, Australia's demerit point system can vary between states, which means a speeding fine in Queensland might not affect your license if you're a resident of New South Wales. But in 2026, that's expected to change. The federal and state governments are discussing plans to harmonize the demerit point system nationwide, meaning your driving record would follow you no matter where you go. It sounds like a fair system, but for many drivers, it could be a ticking time bomb. Small infractions that once went unnoticed across borders may now combine to suspend your license without warning. Imagine this: a few speeding fines during a road trip across different states, a forgotten seatbelt offense, or even a red light camera you didn't realize had flashed. Separately, none of these may have been serious enough to worry about, but under a national points system, they could add up fast. You could wake up one morning to find a suspension notice in your inbox for offenses you didn't even realize were still active. The days of escaping minor infractions by simply crossing a border are coming to an end. And it's not just about being caught red-handed. Under the proposed system, all state records would be linked, making it easier for authorities to access your full driving history instantly. While this might improve safety on paper, it could also create confusion, especially for people who moved interstate or regularly drive between regions for work. If you haven't kept close track of your driving record, it's time to start. Because in 2026, ignorance won't be an excuse, and a few old mistakes could cost you your license, regardless of how carefully you've been driving lately. Number 5. Vision tests could be required more often. By 2026, one of the expected changes in driver licensing laws involves frequent and stricter vision testing. Currently, in many states, eye exams are only required when you first get your license or when renewing at a certain age. But that could soon change. Health and transport authorities are pushing for mandatory vision checks every few years, regardless of age, and possibly every year for older drivers. The reason? Studies show that even slight changes in eyesight, especially issues with night vision or peripheral awareness, can significantly increase the risk of accidents. And now, governments are taking those findings seriously. The problem is, many people don't realize their vision has declined until it's tested. You might still feel confident behind the wheel, but a simple failure on a standard eye chart could trigger an automatic license suspension or downgrade. Worse, these new requirements might apply not only to physical vision, but also to the quality of your corrective lenses. If your prescription is outdated or your glasses don't meet new standards, you could be considered legally unfit to drive, even if you've never had an accident in your life. In some proposals, these tests would be tied directly to license renewal, with no exceptions or grace periods. This change could particularly affect rural and regional drivers, where access to optometrists is limited and public transport isn't a realistic backup. Failing to get your test done on time could lead to a suspended license without warning, and appealing the decision might take months. To avoid being caught out, it's smart to book regular eye checks now, update your glasses or contacts as needed, and keep a record. In a future where compliance is automatic, staying ahead of the system is your best defense. Before we dive into the next reason, quick question for you. Which of these changes do you think is the most unfair or unexpected? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We put a lot of time into researching these updates, so your feedback means the world. And hey, if you're finding this valuable, hit that subscribe button. It's just one click, but helps us keep going. Number 6. Stricter drug and alcohol rules. In 2026, Australia is set to crack down even harder on drug and alcohol-related driving offenses. And this time, the changes could affect even responsible drivers who think they're following the rules. Authorities are considering lowering the legal blood alcohol limit, possibly to 0 for certain drivers, including P-platers, commercial drivers, and those with a history of offenses. But that's not all. There's also a growing focus on prescription medication, with certain common drugs potentially becoming a reason for suspension. That includes things like sleeping pills, antidepressants, anxiety meds, and even strong cold or flu tablets. The scary part is most people don't realize that many prescription and over-the-counter medications can affect their ability to legally drive. If new laws pass, simply having these substances in your system, regardless of whether you feel impaired, could result in a failed roadside test and a suspended license. Even medications prescribed by your doctor could be flagged if they're listed as impairing substances under updated national guidelines. And because roadside drug testing is becoming more sensitive and more frequent, you might test positive without even knowing you were at risk. This creates a dangerous gray area where drivers who genuinely believe they're being careful may still fall on the wrong side of the law. To stay safe, you'll need to be proactive. Read the labels, talk to your pharmacist, and don't assume that having a prescription protects you from legal consequences. Keep track of how long medications stay in your system, and avoid driving if there's any doubt. In 2026, the rules are expected to become less forgiving, more technical, and strictly enforced, so the time to start understanding how your medications affect your legal driving status is now, not when it's already too late. Number 7. Fatigue monitoring for drivers. One of the more surprising proposals for 2026 is the push toward real-time fatigue monitoring, especially for commercial drivers, gig workers, and even shift workers who drive long distances. The goal is to prevent accidents caused by drowsy driving, a factor in thousands of crashes each year in Australia. But how the government plans to do this is where things get complicated. New systems may require drivers to wear fatigue detection devices, like smartwatches or headbands, or have in-car cameras that monitor eye movements, blinking rates, and head position. If the system detects signs of tiredness, it could automatically issue warnings or even alert authorities. For long-haul drivers and rideshare workers, this could mean having your hours tightly regulated by technology, similar to aviation pilots or truck drivers using electronic logbooks. But there's growing concern that these systems may be expanded to regular drivers, especially those with medical conditions linked to fatigue, such as sleep disorders or heart issues. If flagged, you could be forced to prove your fitness before getting behind the wheel again. This raises privacy concerns, but more urgently, it means a growing number of Australians might face license restrictions simply for being tired, even if they've never had an accident. The problem is fatigue can be hard to measure consistently. A bad night's sleep, jet lag, or stress could all trigger false alerts. If these systems become mandatory, your ability to drive might depend on how rested a device thinks you are, not how you actually feel. The best way to protect yourself? Start treating fatigue as seriously as alcohol or drug use. Rest well before long drives, take regular breaks, and consider using sleep trackers to stay ahead of any potential risk flags. In a data-driven system, how you manage your own body could determine whether you stay on the road in 2026. Number 8. Your car might be too old. As Australia moves toward a safer, smarter road system, one overlooked consequence is that older vehicles could be pushed off the roads entirely. In 2026, new vehicle safety regulations are expected to tighten, with authorities focusing on mandating certain features, like autonomous emergency braking, lane keep assist, rear-view cameras, and advanced stability control. While these technologies are standard in newer models, millions of Australians still drive older cars that don't meet these upcoming safety benchmarks. And under the new rules, owning one of these vehicles could lead to registration refusal or license length restrictions. This means that if your car is deemed non-compliant, you might not be allowed to drive it, even if it's roadworthy by current standards. Some proposals suggest that vehicles without certain safety features could be restricted from freeway use, long-distance travel, or night driving. Others go further, hinting at mandatory vehicle upgrades or trade-ins as part of licensing renewal. For low-income families, students, and elderly drivers who rely on older, reliable cars, this could become a serious financial burden. In some cases, the cost of compliance may even exceed the value of the vehicle itself. The real risk is that many people won't realize they're affected until it's too late. A routine license renewal in 2026 could include a new compliance check for your vehicle, and if it fails, you may not be allowed to legally drive it anymore. To avoid surprises, it's a good idea to check your car's safety features now. Look up the upcoming requirements in your state, and plan ahead if an upgrade might be needed. The government may offer rebates or incentives, but they won't cover everyone, and being unprepared could mean losing not just your car, but also your license. Number 9. Digital license glitches. With most Australian states moving toward fully digital driver's licenses, the days of carrying a physical card in your wallet may soon be over. But while this shift promises convenience, it also brings a new set of risks. In 2026, it's expected that digital-only licensing systems will become standard in many regions, meaning your eligibility to drive could depend entirely on an app working properly. If your phone dies, the app crashes, or your license fails to sync correctly, you could be treated as unlicensed on the spot, even if you've done nothing wrong. Early versions of these digital platforms have already shown signs of trouble. Users have reported expired credentials not updating, system outages during police checks, and confusion over what actually counts as valid ID. Now imagine this happening during a random roadside stop or at a traffic checkpoint. If your app fails and you can't instantly prove you're licensed, officers may be forced to issue fines or even temporary suspensions under the new enforcement rules. The scary part is that the error may not be yours, but the consequence still is. To protect yourself, you'll need to treat your digital license like a live, time-sensitive document. Always keep your phone charged, make sure your app is updated, and regularly check that your license status is current. Some states may still offer physical cards as a backup, but others are phasing them out entirely. If you're not tech-savvy, or if you often struggle with connectivity in rural areas, this change could seriously impact your ability to drive. In a world where your license lives on a screen, a simple glitch might be all it takes to get you off the road. Number 10. Missed messages could cost you. In 2026, many state transport departments are planning to move entirely to digital communication, which means important notices, like license suspensions, renewal reminders, or fines, may no longer arrive in your physical mailbox. Instead, they'll be sent via email, text messages, or app notifications. While that might sound convenient, it opens the door to a major issue. What happens if you miss the message? Under new enforcement policies, not seeing the notice won't be a valid excuse. And for many drivers, this could lead to an unexpected suspension, simply for not checking an inbox. Imagine missing an email about a medical review requirement or an overlooked fine, only to find out weeks later that your license has been automatically canceled due to noncompliance. In some states, even a late response to a demerit point notice could escalate into a full suspension. The shift to automated systems means decisions happen faster, with less human intervention, and fewer chances for you to explain or appeal before consequences are enforced. If your contact details aren't up to date or you tend to ignore official emails, you're especially at risk. The solution is simple but urgent. Log into your state's transport portal. Make sure your phone number, email, and home address are current, and enable all digital alerts. Set calendar reminders for license and REGO renewals, and keep an eye on any messages from government domains. In 2026, staying legally licensed won't just depend on how you drive. It will depend on how closely you manage your digital footprint. Because missing a message might not just cost you a fine anymore. It could cost you your right to drive. As we've seen, the road rules in Australia are about to go through some of the biggest transformations in decades. From health checks and AI monitoring to digital licenses and stricter penalties, the driving world in 2026 will look very different from what we know today. While many of these changes are being introduced in the name of safety, the truth is that millions of everyday drivers may be caught off guard, losing their licenses over things they never thought could disqualify them. But the good news is, you now know what to expect. The key takeaway? Stay ahead, stay informed, and don't wait until it's too late. Keep your records up to date, take your medical and vision health seriously, understand your car's compliance level, and make sure your digital tools are functioning properly. It might feel overwhelming now, but with just a few simple steps, you can avoid being one of the many who lose their license simply because they didn't know the rules had changed. This isn't fear, it's preparation. And preparation is what will keep you safely on the road in 2026 and beyond. If any of these changes surprised you, or if you think they're unfair, drop your thoughts in the comments. We read every single one, and your voice deserves to be heard. We put a huge amount of effort into researching and creating these videos to keep you informed. So if you found this helpful, please support us by subscribing to the channel. It's completely free, and it's just one click, but it helps us more than you know. And if you want to stay one step ahead of the next big change, don't miss our upcoming videos.